Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into the Gramlich and McLean podcast presented by Ingles, the official supermarket of Gramlich and McLean. It is the official one. And we are going to talk some legitimate football today. We're going to get on the field, okay? We're going to talk about some of these teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference that we're also interested in. And I know it's only late May, but football season will truly be here before you know it. And we've got to talk and address, Mac, some of the hype that we're feeling with some of these teams. And is it too much? Because I think it's possible that there is a little bit too much hype, but we're excited for today's interview.
Hey, listen, the one thing you guys know about me, I am a passionate, energetic, hype train. All right, we're bringing it. We're talking about it. I get excited about these teams. And one guy that I think loves college football almost as much as I do, our guest today, PicKell from On3. This dude brings it each and every day. His insight, his opinions. Love what he does and love talking ball with him right now because it's been really fun to just see the growth of On3, of the things that he's doing. And again, it's something that we are very passionate about here on the Gramlich and McLean podcast.
Let's go. So we're going to get to JD, and we followed him, Mac. Like, he's blown up over the last couple of years. He's a bit younger than us, so we talk about some of the being a recent student athlete and then seeing all the change and all that's been going on. So he does a great job with On3, which is blowing up all over the place with their football coverage. We will also have another guest from On3 a little later on, so we're excited about that. We're just raiding the On3 offices. And, of course, we want to shout out Ingles, thank them for everything that they're doing, getting ready for Memorial Day and getting ready for cookouts and all that kind of thing. Make sure you head over to Ingles and get everything you need there, from your meats, as Max says, to your chips and dip, which you know I'm a huge proponent of, and everything in between. Head to Ingles for all that you need. So get a quick message here from our friends over at Ingles, and then we'll get to our interview with JD PicKell.
It's time to discover the convenience and time savings of contact-free pickup with Ingles Curbside. Just visit shop.ingles-markets.com or download the app. And your Ingles personal shopper gets to work with specialized training on how to select the freshest items for a pre-scheduled pickup. They'll even text you with updates. You pull up to a designated space and your personal shopper delivers your items right to your vehicle. Fresh, fast, and affordable. It's all in the bag. Ingles. Low prices. Love the savings.
All right, guys, welcome back in. JD, brother, I've been waiting on this one, man. I've been waiting on the right time, waiting for the summer guests, and here we are. Here you are. Welcome to the show, my brother. Appreciate you joining us today.
Man, I feel privileged to be on here with y'all. Y'all have told me some of the other folks you've been recording with throughout the course of this podcast. So being invited in the same company of those folks, feel honored, and this is a blast, man. I think you were the very first guest we got to have on our show when it started a couple of years ago. And so this is awesome. Full circle. Glad to be on here, man.
That is super cool. And that's exactly where I wanted to start, man, because your growth has been unbelievable. The popularity of the show, the new place that you're sitting in right now looks so good. So let's go to day one, man, of wanting to get into this business. And, you know, football's done. You hang up the cleats. What the heck was next? What was next for you?
Yeah, that was a great question. So to kind of set the table, I graduated and then walked on at Baylor. Had one more year of eligibility, wanted to use it. And I'm like, Baylor's where my family is gone. I have a friend that goes to Baylor. I'll live with him. It'll be a great deal. Before fall camp, have to stop playing ball because I got too many concussions. And so at that point, you know, you're hearing from other people that are saying, hey, maybe it's time to stop playing. And so that was kind of a whirlwind of sorts because, you know, I came to this school, you know, to quote Cardell Jones, I didn't come there to play school. You know, I came there to do school so I could play football. And, you know, life comes at you fast. And so had previously, during our picture day, actually, had a conversation with the SID at Baylor, just kind of in line before you get your picture taken. You know how it is. And he asked me what I want to do after football was done, thinking I got maybe a little more of a runway. I'm like, I'd love to do broadcasting, you know, some way, somehow. And I would say it was a couple of weeks after I you know, retired, quote unquote, got a text from someone who ran an outlet in Waco, and they said, you want to come on and do some post-game shows for us? We'll pay you $30. And I was like, you're going to pay me $30 to do a post-game show? Like, I would do it for free. So anyway, all this say, they kept inviting me around, and it all worked out. So that's a long way to say, got to do a YouTube channel under that same umbrella. right people from On3 saw the right clips, I suppose, as I was, going in and filming, different segments during my 8 to 5 lunch break that I had. And yeah, so a lot of people that allowed me to be in the right place at the right time. And definitely something that was orchestrated, and moved here a little less than 2 years ago now to Nashville from Waco, and been able to have the key card work here at On3 ever since.
Well, that's a really good story, JD, because I feel like everyone's entry into broadcasting is so different. I've never heard someone have the exact same story, and that's just kind of how it goes. Mac and I are very similar in that regard. But it's funny because you are a decent bit younger than Mac and I. We'll just put it out there, Mac. We'll put it out in the universe. So you played much more recently than Mac and I did, like, when NIL wasn't even a word that people knew. So how do you feel like, since you've played in a much more recent time, and then now you're covering the sport with all these changes and all that's going on, how do you feel like the sport has changed even since you played to now, as you're really involved in learning more about recent things that are happening?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. I think player mobility as a whole is probably the most evident thing across the landscape. Like the transfer portal becoming a reality. When I jumped in the transfer portal as a grad transfer, it was like, go talk to your, it's the same process as it is now, but like now we're really tracking this. We're watching names. Everybody has access to it. It feels like from a media perspective. I just jumped in there. I don't think anybody called me. I don't think anybody reached out to me. And now, granted, I wasn't, a high profile recruit by any stretch of the imagination, but now you're seeing guys from the conference that I played in, once they graduate, if they have an extra year, like they're jumping in, they're getting articles written about them, like they're, hot commodities. And so I think the way that even different staffs view the portal more so as a resource is something they want to take advantage of, as opposed to just adding, one-off grad transfer walk-ons like myself. It's been cool to see that evolve, and it's now like a real have to in college football. It's not so much, do you want to? I know Clemson's still sort of not totally jumped in that pool just yet, but even so, I think we're seeing it become more and more a thing.
I love that, man. How about a little bit of that On3 journey? Because you mentioned that, and we're very familiar, obviously, with the site and the ownership and leadership there, and have some great friends that are writers, and obviously yourself with the coverage that you provide. What was that like? Because a couple of years ago, I'm doing my math here, that was very early, right? Like On3 had relatively just launched. Was there any angst there, or man, you were biting at the bit, whatever it was, let's go, let's make it happen?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a pretty healthy combination of both, I would say, because at that point in time, my wife and I had just gotten married. We were maybe 4 months into being married, lived in Texas. She's from Texas, whole family's in Texas. And so at the drop of a hat, I'm like, hey, this job just got offered to me. It's, at this point in time, feels like a dream job. Like, are you down to make this jump with me? So there's that whole angst of like, you just asked your wife of 4 months to move across, into a pretty much brand new world from Nashville to what Waco, Texas was. And so there's that part of it. You want to make sure you make other people right that are, kind of believing in you, so to speak. And then also just to call a spade, like having done the 8 to 5 rhythm, and I'd worked for great people in Waco, was extremely grateful for the job that I got to do there, working for like a startup home care company. I did their corporate recruiting. But like doing what we get to do now, that they pay us real income to sit behind a microphone and we get to pay the bills that way. Like,
wait, you guys are getting paid?
Like, hey, I don't want to go back to doing that. Like, I got a dream job, man, that a lot of people would love to do, I'm sure. So like, let's make sure we don't leave anything in the tank any given day, So there's definitely some competitive juice and some angst, but at the same time, like, you just got to be extremely aware of how fortunate you are and how blessed you are, and definitely that is not something that is lost on me, and feel really, really lucky in a lot of sense.
So one thing too that's changed, JD, in just kind of the past couple of years, at least in my opinion, I don't know if I was just out on the loop, is kind of this rise of YouTube. Because when we started our podcast, it was just audio. Mac said, we need to get on YouTube. And I was like, are you sure, Mac? Do people even go on YouTube? Like, I truly did not know that people go on YouTube and like browse and stuff. I was just so out of the loop. And now it's a big space, especially for sports, and I think for the college football world. And that's what you've broken into. So is this something where you kind of had to pitch On3, like, hey, we need this YouTube presence? Did you always think it was going to be YouTube? Because a lot of people, when they think broadcasting, they think TV, but a lot of times, even now, TV can be antiquated in a lot of ways. So, how did that come up for you?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think going back to what I was saying previously about this whole thing just being perfectly orchestrated for someone like me. Like I don't have a degree in broadcasting. They never put me on TV for good reason when I was, a young college student. We didn't have any, student broadcasting outlet. And so I think I was fortunate in the sense that there were other people in the industry that had kind of started to break through. Like an RJ Young had just gotten hired at Fox, I
Mhm.
want to say close to a year prior to me getting hired with On3. Josh Pate was starting to blow
Mhm.
up. And so I think there was sort of this thought around, hey, there is a real audience on YouTube for college football. And On3 being on the cutting edge of a lot of things, I think saw that from Shannon's time at 24/7 and now being here at On3, decided to invest in that. And I'm
Yeah.
eternally grateful for it. So I think the path for my career has intersected really perfectly with the trend in digital media. And then I'm, again, just feeling very, very grateful for it.
Okay, so we're going to get into the full just college football picture and talk some more college football there. But from all of your stuff on YouTube and your interaction with different fan bases, this is what I want to ask. And you can be diplomatic, okay? But I'd
Don't
prefer
be
you not.
diplomatic. Don't be diplomatic.
Which fan base do you, and you could name a couple, which fan bases do you really enjoy interacting with? And which fan bases are so insane that when you put up a video about this fan base, you're thinking, oh no, like here it goes.
That is a tremendous question. I'll do my best to not be diplomatic here.
Yeah.
It's funny because whoever you speak highly of, you hear things like, hey, this guy's balanced. This guy's well informed,
Yes.
one of the most level heads in the game. And then you say something about the same team the next week that might be a little bit negative, and it's like,
Mhm.
this guy's a clown, lost all
Get 'em out.
credibility. I've had a fair amount of interaction with Tennessee fans being in Nashville, and they've been phenomenal to me to this point. I will say the good folks over in Boulder, Colorado, they have
Oh.
strong opinions. They are college football fans, I think now going on 45, 46 minutes. And so there is a lot of strong opinions. It's hard because there's really no nuance when you talk about Dion with some of these people, which I understand. I love Coach Prime. I love what he's doing for college football. But if you say something like, hey, I think he should take home visits. Nick Saban did home visits. Dion should do home visits. It's like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. You just hate Deion Sanders. It's like, no, I just think maybe we should stick to the process that's worked. So the good folks from Colorado on the digital media platforms have shown some healthy discontentment with some of the content I've done previously. But at the end of the day, like I think the fact that someone cares enough to comment back to you or cares enough about their own team to comment back to you or have something on or have a take on whatever you said, that itself is kind of cool. So
You
kind of
love
comes
it.
with the territory, as
That's
y'all
right.
know. But those are the two fan bases I would mention. Hey,
You love
Clemson,
to see
great
it.
folks, great folks. I would
Yeah,
say too at
daggone
Clemson,
right.
they were awesome.
Daggone right. I think my favorite thing, JD, and as you continue to do different things and whatever, when you do a game and you have one side of the fan base saying you're such a homer, you're such this is this, and then the other side also says that in the same game, that's how I know I called a perfect game. Because I was, riding high with everybody. I was excited to be with them. I have two kind of follow ups before we jump into some NIL and things of that nature. You're sitting in a massive new office, which looks unbelievable. It looks fantastic. Maybe talk a little bit about that and where you guys are and how you got to where you are. And then also Waco, Texas. I'm a huge Chip and Joanna Gaines fan. Are you friends with them? Like, can you hook me up? Do we know them?
I'll start with that second part of the question because it's a much simpler answer. Never met Chip and Joanna, heard great things. Waco is a small enough place to where like you will know people who know Chip and Joanna, which is just funny how that works. They've pumped a ton of money into Waco too. Like Waco used to have a different reputation for some different documentaries that have come out on Netflix over the course of the last couple of years, and now they're kind of rebranding, right? Like sports are getting better, basketball won a national championship, so they've kind of been a part of the resurgence of Waco. I'll work my contacts and see if we can get y'all connected. But when it comes to what On3 is doing, man, like I'm just happy to have a seat on the bus, man. To be honest, like being able to be hired from someone like a Shannon Terry with all the success he's had from Rivals 24/7 and getting on with On3 at the earlier stages, you just kind of feel like you got the golden ticket, which is kind of a hyperbolic thing to say, but it's absolutely true. And so to speak about where we are right now, this is the new office space that we are currently still building out and developing. I'm actually in a space that was going to be a temporary studio, but I think it's just going to be one of our studios now. Is there's probably 100 yards over my right shoulder. There's another studio they're building out. It's going to have a couple of different sets and a little bit more of a TV quality look to it. So again, like I'm happy to have a desk in the office. I'm happy to sit down and be able to talk about college football and get paid and wherever they want me to do it, whether it's in a new studio, whether it's outside, like,
sure.
Hey, I'm great with it. But yeah,
well, this is cool newsroom vibes. It looks cool. It looks really good. Yep. But I know that next studio is probably going to be another stratosphere. I can't wait to see that.
I'm waiting for someone so we have our video team behind us. They do a lot of graphics, a lot of thumbnails. And y'all know this, like there's sort of a gauge for, hey, this kid might be committing to this school. Let's get a graphic ready. Well, we go live. And so whenever somebody's watching the live show, if the wrong person's working on the wrong graphic over my shoulder, like we're going to be
everybody's going to
hot
know.
Water here leaking
everybody's
the kid's commitment. So until that happens, this situation has been great for us so far.
That's really funny. I could see, college football fans are crazy. They're probably sleuthing, like looking behind you, seeing what they can figure out, JD, as you've mentioned with a few of those fan bases. So let's just talk NIL as a whole here and what you've seen. Like you said, On3's been doing some different things that we hadn't seen before. The NIL tracker, where you can kind of track the valuation of certain kids and, how true is that? And are they getting this, et cetera? So when we look at recent NIL legislation where basically schools can be a bit more involved, whereas we didn't want it to be pay for play. And now it's almost like, do we want it to be pay for play because it's become so crazy? Where do you think we are right now with the NIL space? And do you think it's been as disruptive as we all thought it was going to be?
I don't think it's been quite as disruptive as we thought it would be, because I think a lot of us thought, okay, you're putting a lot of money on the table for a lot of, different college kids who are making different amounts. Like, is that going to destroy locker rooms? I think that was the first concern that I don't know that we've seen as much. Not to say that it hasn't impacted chemistry in a locker room, but I think the strong cultures that were built to, endure different variables are the ones that are enduring, and the ones that, were kind of flimsy to begin with. This is just sort of that straw that broke the camel's back, in my opinion. But speaking to your question about, where are we when it comes to NIL, I think in both NIL and the transfer portal, we're sort of in a state of transition. Like the rules are always changing. I think revenue sharing is probably inevitable if you're asking me. I think where we are right now is going to be different than where we are in 5 years. But I do think when we talk about valuations and we talk about, contracts and schools now being able to be involved, to me, I would just say the more level-headed, common sense, well-educated adults we can put into a room, the better, to have, the best intentions of these kids at heart. Because I think when we see NIL really go awry is kids either getting no guidance or bad guidance. Right. Like, hey, maybe you don't want to sign a contract that's going to, unbeknownst to you, allow that agent to take a certain percentage of your first NFL contract. Like, just more protection for these kids, more transparency and more framework, I think, is always going to be a good thing. And I think we're moving towards that.
Yeah. So you guys just had your NIL retreat. I believe that's the second year that you've done it. What is the overall purpose of that? For those that don't know, and maybe some people are watching this, you're like, NIL retreat, what are you talking about? What do you guys do there? Who all's invited? Who all comes? What does that really look like?
Yeah, the On3 Elite Series, the first year we had, I think, somewhere in the range of 30 of the top prospects from across high school football that came and got to hear from people like a Kirk Herbstreit or Olivia Dunn, who's done really well for herself in the NIL space. And this year we were closer to 50 of the top prospects, which was phenomenal. And our team here with On3 Elite and Shannon, they do a tremendous job. Shannon Terry, who's of course our CEO of On3. I think the whole heart behind it, there's a couple of different prongs to it, but I think the overall mission is to educate these kids and prepare them as best we can for the NIL world they're about to enter into. Because NIL is so new and there's so many different horror stories you hear, and there's so many different numbers that get thrown out there. And so I think the hope is like, hey, here's the best way we can equip you. You're going to have a lot of, more than likely, NIL potential. You've probably already been approached about NIL opportunities. Here's what we want to help you be ready for when you get that contract offered to you, or you get that opportunity thrown your way, so you can kind of sniff out, hey, based on talking to, like, Kirk Herbstreit was here last year. Hey, Kirk Herbstreit talked about this. That set off a weird, flag for me in relation to this opportunity. I'm going to do some more due diligence. I'm going to talk to somebody else. I'm going to reach out to, those different resources that were at the On3 NIL event. So I think the best way to say it is we want to help prepare these kids for where college athletics is headed, and I'm really, really proud to be a part of it.
That's really interesting to me, because it feels like you guys are doing this to help them and to educate them. And yeah, you probably get, I'm guessing, maybe some access to some of these kids and things like that, build relationships. But maybe there's not that much in it for On3. Like, I think this feels like you're really just trying to help them and navigate it. Am I right on that assessment, JD?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that maybe gets folks the most concerned is, well, is this kid going to get ranked higher because he came to the event, or is this kid going to get ranked higher because he claimed his athlete profile? And so I can just say, and it's obviously, my word versus whoever, so I understand that. But I mean, Charles Power is the most, who does our he's in charge of our rankings. Him and Cody Belair do a phenomenal job. They're the most football guys I've ever met. Like, Charles comes in here, wears the same thing every day, has the same thing for lunch. You talk to him about what he did over the weekend. He's like, oh, I went to this high school and saw this kid. Like, I've never once heard him talk about NIL with the recruit and that factoring into his evaluation. So I think that's something that people are still getting acclimated to, but really it is for the athlete, which is, I think, really even something that you hear Grant Furking, who I believe is, I don't want to get his title wrong, the president of our On3 Elite. I think his title's changing all the time, so I don't want to get that wrong for Grant. But yeah, the bottom line, they're for the athlete, trying to do what's best for them and help them in their next phase. But I understand the thought behind it for people that are wanting to learn more, and I think more transparency is a great thing for all.
Yeah, that's good to know. It sounds like your colleague there is a real sicko in the best way, a real college football sicko.
Committee,
we love that. Yeah, for sure. So speaking of NIL and all that, when we look at the transfer portal, and this is something that Mac and I, as the old heads here, I truly couldn't imagine transferring once. Okay, maybe, even though back then the consequence of sitting out was really too much for most people to transfer. But now transferring 2 times, 3 times, where you're end up playing at 4 schools in 4 years, whatever it is. Do you feel like some of this is from the COVID era, where you have people who had that 5th year going to go use it somewhere else? Or do you feel like we're truly in this new world where your average player is going to play, especially in college football, for more than one school? Like, over 50% of kids are going to play for more than one school. Do you think that's where we are?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. I think Dylan Gabriel did a interview with Will Compton during their spring tour with Bussin' with the Boys, and he had an interesting conversation about his departure from Oklahoma, because he was going on his 3rd school. But then I think about Dylan Gabriel, and I don't know that I necessarily group him in with those individuals that I would, categorize as serial transfers, but he is going on his 3rd school. His situation at Oklahoma was interesting, I think, to talk about, because his whole approach that last year at Oklahoma, based on this interview, was, hey, I'm going to go to the NFL after this season. That is my intention. I'm letting everyone know that. The coaching staff's preparing for that. They're preparing another quarterback's preparing for that. And so he gets his draft grade back. And I think he was like 7th round or undrafted. Like, he wasn't happy with his grade, obviously. And he's like, well, I've pretty much told everybody at Oklahoma I'm not going to be here next year. They're preparing that way. It's not really fair so much for me to come back after I made this big thing about how I'm going to leave. So I think situations like that, there's nuance and context that is helpful for us with different players. But I really do think it is a thing now where, especially with the NIL opportunities, if I can make more money at school B than I am at school A, like, who am I to turn that down, especially when I could be the breadwinner for my family at this point in time? So there's so many different factors that go into it. But I think what you said is on the money. Like, we're seeing an era where if guys aren't playing or in the role they want to have or whatever, like, it's a much easier route to say, okay, well, I'll go to this school because they're promising me, a Beamer, and I'll be able to start at receiver. Like, it's a good deal. So I understand the thought, but I'm with y'all. I don't like moving, period, like moving apartments, much less moving
Oh,
schools. So that would be a lot, but I understand that there's probably some zeros that would make that easier.
Yeah, it's
mm,
such a just an interesting time, man, where guys can, and gals for all different sports. We're talking about just football here, but pick up and leave. If one thing isn't going the way they thought, or somebody said the wrong thing to them, and really the there's a couple of different aspects, and we've been in this thing for so many years now. It's like, as your opinion changed, whatever, on certain things. But the one that I just cannot stand is when a guy either coming in as a freshman, and maybe it's early, hasn't played a snap, hasn't played in a game yet, and leaves, before that, like so quick. You're just like, what are you doing? What's going on? Or we've seen a couple of these examples. A young man who went from Houston, I believe, to Louisville, and is in the portal again before he played a game. We had a running back that's doing that. I don't know if he's officially going to leave or what, but it's just like the serial jumpers. You're just hopping around, and like, who the heck do you pull for? When you're done, where do you go home? Where is home? And so, is it a problem to you? Is it a weird thing to you? What would you like to see done about that? Or it's just, hey, it is what it is. Lock in, let's go.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, like you said, I think we're probably going to have to end up in that. All right, let's lock in, let's go. I guess this is the world we're living in. But I'm with you, Eric. Like, this is going to sound a little bit like I'm the old man yelling at the cloud of this is the values of what I learned in football. But like, really, what you take away from the game, unless you have generational wealth from playing in the NFL, is like the relationships and then the things that you learned. And the things that I learned playing college football and high school football were usually situations where I had to persevere, or I wasn't the starter, or I had to work a little bit harder, or I had to find a way to get on the field in another position. And so I just think that value, again, it's not something that you can put into an NIL equation and say, okay, that's worth this many dollars for you in the long term. But I really think like the kids that do stick it out and do wait their turn, I think they make a lot more value for themselves emotionally and maturity wise. And I'm worried that there's a lot of kids that are losing that potential lesson from this transfer portal. And so I know it's going to be lost on a lot of people here because kid's getting offered $500,000 to transfer. He's being told he's going to be a first round pick. I get it. But at the end of the day, man, like that $500,000 runs out at some point and the lessons you learn don't.
Okay, so big picture then, if because I think we all agree on that, but now we're seeing the head honchos of these conferences also start going after the money and not really worrying about the student athlete experience or kind of the things that we're talking about, right? And so, what do you make of this, JD? Where we're going to have Stanford in the ACC, we're going to have Southern Cal in the Big Ten. It's so weird. And then where do we go from here? Like, is there if there was a magic wand that we could give you and you could just kind of fix everything, and whether it be relegation, whether it be, we have 60 schools that are just in FBS, like what would you do there?
If I could trade the magic wand for a time machine, I think I would go back in time a little bit and try to make sure that we could preserve the Pac-12 and we can preserve the ACC. And I understand that's maybe a fool's errand here. That would be my hope, just because I loved that era of college football as a fan. And I think what you said is really important with the way these tectonic plates are shifting. And it feels like we're headed towards that super conference era. It feels more to me like a matter of when, not so much if, because I understand the money is kind of calling the shots now, whether we like it or not. But I think when you look at college football, I wonder where the breaking point is, where you have folks that have loved this sport for forever just say, you know what, I don't recognize that anymore. I think I'm good on this whole college quote unquote football that you put in air quotes. Because to me, the comp has always been like college football is like a national park, tons of natural beauty. There's things that are just specific to people that love national parks that they love about college football, the pageantry, the band, the rivalries, all those things. Then you have somebody who came in and threw a roller coaster in the middle of Yosemite National Park, and they're like, it's going to make a lot of money. It's going to attract a lot of people. There's people that have loved Yosemite for the better part of, the last 20 years. They're like, but that's not why we don't love Yosemite because there's a roller coaster there and because you can make money. We love it because it's naturally beautiful. And we've come here for the last however many generations. It's like, yeah, well, but again, we're going to make money off of it. So, and I think that's kind of where we're trending with the expanded playoff, which is a whole nother topic, and the tectonic plate shifting within the conferences. Like, we've put a roller coaster in the national park. We're going to lose some people, and I just wonder how many.
Yeah, that's what's going to be bizarre. And I like how you got rid of the wand, man. You just say trade it in. We're doing something else.
Wasteful.
I do have to think that there's a super conference league coming. Is it one? Is it two? Is it a new division where maybe 40, 50 teams are invited to play? I don't know, because I do think that we are going to see the big boys take their ball and go somewhere else. And quite frankly, that's already what we have in the national championship. That is not an NCAA event. That is a college football playoff event. And so, why not just keep expanding that, making even more money? And then you just have different rules. And we don't have to worry about transfer rules being different. We don't have to worry about NIL rules varying from state to state. This is what we're going to do as this new, super league. So like you said, I think that's a matter of when, not if, and just how quickly does that happen? Maybe in the next 5 years. It's going to be bizarre. Let's shake things up a little bit here, man. Let's go to the ACC. That's what we talk about primarily here. Let's dive into some things. And there we go. We got our helmet. I got mine. Unlocked. KG, where's yours? Pop it up. Let's see it. Looking around frantically. But let's start big picture, JD, and just, what do you like in the ACC? Who do you like in the ACC? Is there a couple of teams that you can throw out that you've just kind of really had your eye on this spring, and maybe as we go into summer with a couple other acquisitions, and then we'll do a little deep dive on some of them?
I just think it's going to be one of the most entertaining conferences in college football in 2024, just because I feel like there is such a massive question mark with those top tier teams that have the most talented rosters. Like Miami, I think Cam Ward's going to be great. I think that they're going to be, in a position to be a lot better than they have previously, but they went 5-7 and 7-5. Do you jump from 7-5 to winning the ACC? I don't know. Florida State, they were great last year, but they're 83rd in returning production in 2024. That's a lot of new faces that you got to make mesh together if you're Mike Norvell. And then you got that paw that I just showed on the screen for those that are watching this video in video format. I got my Clemson helmet here riding shotgun. What do they look like in 2024? Because you have the continuity on offense, but you lose a lot on defense production-wise. Can Garrett Riley and Cade Klubnik kind of make some magic that we saw Garrett Riley make at TCU? Do they eventually, start going more to the portal after this upcoming season because it hasn't been working? Like Louisville is pretty much living off the portal. So I think there's so many teams that I would say are the most talented, but they just still have just massive question marks next to them. And I think it's going to make for a really entertaining season within the ACC, man. I can't wait. But Miami, Florida State, Clemson are those three that I'm circling. And right now, if I had to pick, probably lean going with the best quarterback for my money right now in Cam Ward, but it's going to be a lot of fun, man. I can't wait.
Okay. I like this, JD. I think Cam Ward, and I was watching some of your stuff on Miami. We also have talked to different people. Cam Ward's the truth, and he's legit. And it's just a matter of, can Miami stay healthy, put it all together? Because they were a lot better than their record last year. I think the Georgia Tech game just derailed them into a rough year. But a team that you didn't mention, I want to start here, JD, because this is a passionate fan base. And first of all, I really like that you're a proud Cornell guy. But also for me as a football fan, I like that you don't have that inherent SEC, ACC, Big Ten, whatever. So I really like that. So when it comes to Virginia Tech, speaking of amazing fan bases, this fan base is so rabid. And honestly, they're great. They don't have a lot of those negative tendencies maybe that some other fan bases do. They're really excited about this coming year, bringing back Kyron Drones, bringing back pieces on defense. What are your thoughts on Virginia Tech as we talk at the end of April about what the Hokies could do?
I believe they're number one in returning production going into this
America.
Season,
in America.
Which is massive. Last year's number one returning production team was Florida State, who won the ACC, and a lot of folks believe they should have been in the college football playoff. So there's some continuity to build off there. What you mentioned with Kyron Drones, I'm excited about him. We know what he is as a runner. I believe he was if not Elite 11 finalist, he was in the Elite 11 competition, which in itself speaks to what he can be as a passer coming out of high school. I'm excited to watch his maturation and his development because he kind of got some more momentum there towards the end of the year, especially in the bowl game with the way he tore it up. They were a hot team to finish the season. I think they won 5 of their last 7. So the momentum, a lot of the familiar faces back. You got your quarterback back. Like, they're one of those teams that I think when we look at, how this whole thing could shake out, I believe they get Clemson at home. I don't think their schedule is overly ridiculous outside of that. Like, they could be one of those teams that we're talking about Miami, we're talking about Florida State, and then backdoor, here comes Brent Pry and co. and bring Vatek back to some national relevance, which would be awesome. Like, right? Like the Frank Beamer days where we have to talk about Tyrod Taylor and Vatek always being a BCS bowl team. Like, I truly just thought that was fun and good for college football as a college football traditionalist of sorts. Having Virginia Tech back in the mix would be a lot of fun, and this could be a great year to do it.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. I think super high expectations for them, a lot of hype, a lot of excitement. And as most things go, I think it'll go as the quarterback does. I truly do.
JD, perfect. I gotta go pick up my son from daycare, but Mac's gonna handle the rest. And you were awesome. So, Mac.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
Appreciate you, KG. All right, JD, let's talk a little bit about the Noles here. Because I think, again, you mentioned all that expectation from what they did a year ago. You bring up the fact that, you're losing some great production, some great leaders. They go to the portal, get DJU, have a couple other guys that they feel really strong about. Are we talking about repeat? Are we talking about being back in the game? Where are the expectations for you and the Noles there?
I think if you ask that fan base, they would say we should win the ACC again. Look at what we did in the portal. Look at who we brought in. My personal expectations is if they can get to that ACC title game, they're probably a college football playoff team. I'm excited about that defense. Like, I know DJU is going to draw a lot of attention, as he should, but the way that they brought a lot of key guys back from, Patrick Payton, DJ Lundy could take another step. Fentrell Cypress at corner is coming back. And they added guys like Marvin Jones Jr. from Georgia, who's a freak show off the edge. And just because you didn't start a bunch of games at Georgia doesn't mean you can't play some ball. So I'm excited to watch him and how he translates. They have some big boys in the middle from Josh Farmer, Daryl Jackson. Like, we can name a lot of names here, but the bottom line here is I think Florida State will have a really solid outfit defensively. And I think with how solid they are on that side of the ball, that's going to allow for a little bit more of an acclimation period for DJU. They're not going to ask him to go out there and throw for 300 yards a game. Like, he can kind of let the game come to him. And I think, honestly, is a really good situation overall for Florida State. So the talent is unquestionable. I'm just excited to see how they put it together and kind of pick up the torch from last year's squad.
Right. And I love everything you laid out there. And I think the interesting thing, I don't know how you felt about it initially, but when that was announced, was just like, really? Is that going to work? Is that fit? Makes sense? And what I had to kind of remind myself is, hey, look, Coach is one of the best offensive minds in the game. Coach Norvell is not going to do with DJU what he did with Jordan Travis. And so he's going to make the system work. And I expect a lot of deep shots. I expect a lot of deep balls, some quarterback power, and running the football, which is ultimately what they want to do. So I think there was a little bit at first this maybe underestimating, but, something that I think he'll pick up on right away. And again, similar to a lot of these teams, you go as the quarterback goes, man. That's the world that we live in and where we are. Transitioning kind of to that other, transfer quarterback that I think is making a lot of noise, but, in the right pockets, maybe a little under the radar nationally. And that's our guy at NC State God, I'm forgetting his name. I'm trying to say McCall, that was elite at Coastal, 10,000 plus yards, all the different things that he did there. And NC State just addressed a lot of things in the portal. Are you on that train at all? Or am I kind of on an island over here by myself?
No, I think you're on the money there. Like, this legitimately, you could probably rattle off 5 or 6 teams and tell me, hey, this team's going to be the ACC champion. I think Florida State, Miami, Clemson would be the least surprising, but I don't think I would be overwhelmingly surprised if it was an NC State with Grayson McCall. Like you mentioned, you go as the quarterback goes. I wonder if Grayson McCall will be a little bit closer to what they wanted Brennan Armstrong to be last year.
Exactly.
With the way that he's able to bridge on the ground and what he brings to the table there as a dual threat. I'm excited to see how he translates, because if it hits with Robert and I and Grayson McCall, I think it'll hit in a big way. NC State, to me too, and you could attest to this better than anybody, Eric, they're one of those teams that I would categorize like a cockroach team. And I say that in an endearing way. It doesn't matter who they lost. It doesn't matter who they have coming back. It doesn't matter what the rest of that staff looks like. As long as Dave Doran is the head coach there, It will be tough. They will be physical, and they will have a strong culture that will make them a problem every single Saturday. Like, it doesn't matter what year it is or who they have on the roster. They're the same team, and they are just tough to kill like a cockroach.
I'm going to let you have that one all by yourself. I agree with everything you're saying, but the metaphor there, that's all you. That's all you.
Perfect.
You're right, though. Hard nose. I mean, and especially with Coach Tony Gibson calling that defense. I mean, one of the best in the country, the things that he does as their defensive coordinator there at NC State. But I do love it. How about Kyle McCord, the name that I couldn't get out of my head there when I'm trying to talk about NC State and McCall there. I am, every day that goes by, I'm falling more in love with Syracuse. And they always start hot, right? Like, the way the schedule is a little bit more favorable. I don't want to discredit anybody. But they have started hot historically these last 4 or 5 years, and then everything falls to pieces. You bring in a guy like that who is ready for the spotlight, wants the spotlight, was dominant, at his time at Ohio State with 3,000 plus yards, leading them to a 1-loss season up until he left. And then you add in a Rondé Gaston to his repertoire. You add in Allen there, the running back field, and some other pieces that they've addressed in the portal right away. Expectations for them with Coach Brown in his first year at Syracuse.
It's tough to put a win-loss to it for me right now as we sit here, early in the summer days. But like, when we talk about Kyle McCord, I think what you said is on the money. How good he was at Ohio State is oftentimes, I think, discredited because of how high that bar is set out there. And it's a high bar, and he knew what it was when he signed up there. But you take a guy like that from an elite culture who was a leader in that elite culture, and you couple it with the head coach, Fran Brown, who also comes from an elite culture at Georgia. And that's just encouraging to me, knowing that everybody in the building at Syracuse is operating under the temperature that Kyle McCord and Fran Brown has set. And from where they come from, I have a belief that temperature is going to be set competitively pretty hot. And so that's going to, I think, pull the best out of their roster. It's going to pull the best out of their practices. And hopefully by those things happening should translate to pulling the best out of what they have on the field. So I think a bowl game is obviously an expectation for them, and it should be. And beyond that, we'll see how far Kyle McCord can elevate his play to take them. But I think culturally that's kind of the X factor for them that I can't wait to see how it ultimately ends up paying dividends.
Yeah, and just with the way that Coach Brown addressed it immediately, saying this is going to be uncomfortable. This is not going to be fun. We're trying to win games. And if you don't want to be a part of it, don't come or leave. Either way, make room if you don't want to be a part of this thing. And quite frankly, I love the bluntness. I love the realness. And I think that's going to translate to a lot of other guys. He's gotten bigger and faster on both lines of scrimmage. Big people hurt little people. He has done that quickly. And I think that we're going to continue, to see that buy-in and excitement level, from the recruits in that area, number one, but also people looking for a fresh start with a different type of coach. I think that really is attractive to people. Before we get to a dark horse, we've talked about 7 schools. I mean, it's hard to keep diving in this thing, but if you have somebody else you like to talk about, I'd love to give you that. I do want to talk about Clemson and the Tigers. And, in your opinion, how do they get back to that national prominence of where they're competing for natties? I don't think the expectation has left, especially the building and some of those players and younger players. But, how do they get back to that, in your opinion, from, where you've watched these last couple of years?
I think the big variable there is explosiveness at the receiver position. The past couple of seasons, we've seen the Clemson offense be effective, but not at the level that I think we, as a college football public, have come to expect from them. We've seen a lot of, the big 6'3" guys that can go win the jump balls and can, hurt you in the red zone, which you absolutely need, but somebody that strikes fear into you, like an Antonio Williams. They need more guys like him, like a Tyler Brown, who came on at different points during last season. They got 2 receivers that are true freshmen currently on campus at Clemson that I think are going to be a helpful piece to solving that puzzle with more explosion offensively. And I think Garrett Riley getting another year to install his scheme, to get Cade Klubnik comfortable, to get the rest of the offense comfortable. I think that's going to matter, and I think that's going to translate to some good things. But to me, it really does start and end with, can you be more explosive at the wide receiver position? So teams have to honor what you bring running the football downhill.
Right. And it's such and as a former wide receiver, I love your point of view there, but it's such a interesting question, because a handful of years ago, your folks, not you, I was about to say you, I don't mean you. we're blaming DJ, and then you hear about the wide receivers. Then Cade comes in for a couple drives. You're like, whoa, that's it. There it is. Yeah. And then he's still having some struggles. Clemson's still having some struggles, and it's such a weird line to go back and forth to say, okay, if Deshaun Watson had this receiving core that we said is struggling, do they still look like that? If Trevor Lawrence has this group, do they still look like that? Or is it a little bit more on the quarterback? It's a fascinating question, one that we probably will never know until we see that day and we see it click. But I'm right there with you. The explosive have to be there. It's part of the offense. It's the offense that I grew up in. And, to literally strike fear into defensive coordinators of this guy can take the top off at any given time. That allows the run game to open up. That allows other players to open up and really get after it. So we'll see. That certainly is a big deal to me and something that needs to be addressed. You had mentioned the lack of production returning defensively, but I think you and I both agree it's nothing but dogs behind them waiting to play. It's just another 5-star waiting in the wing. I was at a spring event there and just seeing, and I'm just like, wow, here it is, just another dude waiting to go and waiting in the wings. Is there a defensive guy, just kind of, I know it's early, that maybe you expect to step up to be a dog for that Clemson defense?
Gosh, it's a dog that I'm expecting for that Clemson defense. I mean, true freshman Sammy Brown, I don't know where he's in the rotation. I don't know if it's a matter of this
just
season.
Casually, his first play of spring ball was a sack fumble, so whatever.
Did he? Okay.
In the spring game, whatever. Hey, welcome to Clemson.
Yeah, okay, so he's here. I'm trying to remember, too, the big defensive tackle, for whatever reason, number 11.
Yeah, Peter Woods.
Peter Woods. I don't know why. That's a simple name. I don't know why I can't remember it. He's a dude. He feels like the next great defensive lineman there.
Yeah,
that's kind of been the calling card, too, for Clemson from the Christian Wilkins and guys like that. But I think we saw what he was last year, but getting another year under his belt, another offseason to get stronger, more comfortable in the system, quicker. I think he's going to evolve into an all-conference consistently kind of player.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. It's going to be fun to watch. All right, last one for you. We've taken up so much of your time. Very grateful for you doing this with us. Is there a dark horse team? Is there a team that we didn't mention or a player on a team that we didn't mention that you're like, man, I really like this guy, I really like this team. If XYZ happens, look out for them to make some noise here.
I'm very curious about Louisville. Very curious about Louisville because they portaled in, I think, somewhere like 25 guys during that first window.
Sounds
I have no idea what ended up in the spring. They are treating the transfer portal as an entree. It is no side dish for Coach Brom and company. Tyler Shuck is the quarterback there. He's going to play. He was at Oregon. He was at Texas Tech. He's going on like year 7 of college football, which I'm like, hey, more power to you. Play till they take the helmet away from you. I wonder if the football guy that Jeff Brom is and the way that he's using the portal, he's able to become in the ACC what Lane Kiffin has become at Ole Miss in the SEC. Fascinating experiment they got going on over there. I think they're playing the NIL ball game pretty effectively. That's a team that obviously was in the conference title game a season ago. I wonder if they're able to recreate it this year. It'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, no question about it. Hey, man, grateful for your time. Appreciate you very much. We need to do it again soon, brother. Thank you so much.
Without a doubt, man. Pleasure to be on.
Thanks again to JD for joining us. A lot of great insight. I know if you follow college football, you've seen him everywhere. So go follow him on Twitter, on Instagram. He's sitting down with different coaches. He's getting that access, and we really appreciate his time. Mac, the season is going to be here so soon. I cannot wait. It's hard to believe it's still, I think we're releasing this in May. It's still only May, but it'll be here soon.
It is. We are so close, KG, and it gets more exciting as the guests keep rolling. We get jacked up for college football in this season that's right around the corner. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate your support always. We need you to go over to YouTube, subscribe, leave some comments. If anything JD said, you want to talk about it, we'd love to be there with you and bring that to the table. So always appreciate you guys tuning in. We need you to go on Apple Podcasts as well, the OGs, rate, review, subscribe there. We would greatly appreciate it. But until next time, we'll see y'all.